Hello. I'm delighted that Where I Belong was shortlisted for this award, and I'm sorry I can't be with you today for the celebrations and the announcement of the winner, but I'm very glad of the opportunity to talk to you because I'd like to tell you a bit about how I came to write this book. It started in a way that none of my other books began. I met some teachers from Leicester who asked me to write a book with Somali characters in, because they said they had lots of students in their school who were Somali and who hadn't got any books with characters like them in. Write it, they said, write it, it'll be very popular. And I said, well, I'm very sorry, but however useful and popular it will be, I can't write a book like that. I have to have an idea, I have to be grabbed by something. And they said, but Somali is very exciting. If you find out about it, it will certainly grab you. There's kidnappings and warlords, and the place hasn't had a government for 20 years. It's a very exciting country, even though it's not very comfortable. And I said, it's very nice of you, but I just don't work like that. I'm very sorry, I can't do it. And then they did something very clever. They said, well, maybe you can't write a book about it, but come and talk to some of our students. Let them talk to you, our students from Somalia, about what their lives are like and how they came to be in this country and what they feel about Somalia. And I'm very nosy, I like to know about things. So I said, all right, that would be great, I'd love to do that. And we fixed a date, and I went away and thought, well, I'd better find out a few things about the country because I don't want to seem like a total fool. So I went away and I looked it up on the internet, and I found out that Somalia is in the Horn of Africa, the pointy bit that sticks out on the eastern side, and that it's a country that's largely desert, or what we would call desert, and that lots of the people earn their living by herding camels and goats, and that's a very prized way of life, that nomadic way of life. And then I went off to Leicester and I talked to these teenagers, none of whom had been born in Somalia. Most of them had never even been there. They were teenagers like many, many other in this country, but they feel fiercely Somali. And I tried to get them to tell me about this country of theirs, and they really found it very difficult. I think they didn't quite know how to talk about it. And I said, what do you think of when I say Somalia? And one boy said, kids with AK-47s, and that really got to me, because I thought, what's it like if when you think of your country you think of kids with guns? So I went away and I started thinking about the character of Abdi and where he really belonged and what it would be like to be him. But I still didn't have a book. I knew it wasn't a book, but I was hooked by then, so I went on reading more about Somalia. I have a huge box full of books I read. And as I read, I discovered something very interesting, which was that although lots of Somali people are nomads and they live what to us would seem a very simple life, there's quite a strong link between them and the world of high fashion, designer fashion, because there are several high-profile models who have come from Somalia. There's Iman, who's married to David Bowie, and there's a woman called Waris Dirie who lives in the United States, and she's both a model and a wonderful campaigner for women's rights in Africa. And as I thought about these women, I thought about what must it have been like to go from living a nomadic life in the deserts in Somalia to being in the world of fashion, which is all about stuff and inconceivable amounts of money. And I found the character of Khadija forming in my head. In fact, what I heard was her voice, first of all. I heard her saying, when you say Somalia to me, I think of rain on the red desert, dust spattering up my leg, and children screaming with joy as the first fat drops hit the ground. When the goo rains come, the whole world changes overnight, from red to green, from starvation land to new fresh pasture. I never thought I would get to hate the rain. And it was when I thought of Khadija, when she came into my head, that I really wanted to write the book. But I knew it needed another character as well. And Freya, like Khadija, just came into my head overnight. I could hear her voice saying, "I hate fashion," in that kind of fierce way that she has. And I sat down and I started writing about these three characters. And it wasn't easy because I'm very ignorant about Somalia. I had to find out, as I said, a lot of things. And I realised pretty soon that there was going to be a lot of violence and excitement in the story, because what I was really writing about was the way that we're all linked together across the world. And I started thinking, what happens when a country where people live with violence and don't have very much, like Somalia, when that gets linked with the world of high fashion? What are the tension points? And I realised that Mahmoud was right there at the tension point, and that he was the one who was going to suffer most. So it was a great book to write, and I hope you've enjoyed reading it. I hope you have a good morning. Goodbye.